Everybody. Today I'm here with something a little bit different. I'm going over the computer science principles create task and how to make a decent one. I had a pretty solid one. Full disclosure, I took this class in 2021. I got a 5 on the exam, and uh, that was due in large part to my multiple choice. I think the multiple choice went very well for me. It's very easy if you know what to study and what's going to be on there. It's pretty basic code, binary, all that. Um, but my create task was pretty solid. I don't think I earned all the points. I think I probably earned 4 or 5. But you'll see that. I'll go through all the points. My program was a presidential encyclopedia of sorts. It's kind of a game. What happens is you give the program a year. That's your input, and then you guess what the president was that year. You might know what the president was that year. You might not. So, and then it tells you if you're right, and it tells you the right president. So let's go through. The first point, row one, is just to show just that, just what I just described. The input, basically the program working, and the output, and then the written response just describes the purpose, kind of like what I just did. So I'll just show what I did in the video. So what I showed in the video. So it just explains what the program is, and it asks for a year. So I'm gonna put it in 1984, and of course it's gonna ask what the president was that year. I know it was Ronald Reagan. I could put Ronald Reagan. I could put Ronald. I could put RR. I could put anything, but I'm gonna put Reagan, and it is going to tell me you are correct. The president in 1984 was Ronald Reagan, number 40. So the president number 40. And clearly I would get that point if I did a decent enough written response. I don't have the written responses. College Board doesn't give it back to me, unfortunately. But row two, second point, is that it includes two program code segments, one that is data and a list, and another one that shows the list being used. And so I have two examples of this: P list with names. This is what makes that whole naming scheme possible. And Y list with years, which is kind of what assigns the name to years is in this little function here. So you can see plist, ylist, both called, and that would be simple enough to get me that point. I just have to identify the name, blah blah blah, and what the data is in those lists. So next thing is just showing how a list makes the program easier and explaining how the list makes it easier, really. So this one's pretty easy. I have two arrays here. I have an array, a big array, and a bunch of smaller arrays contained within that array. And so clearly, good example of how this makes it easier. I don't really want to make a different variable for each one of these names. So clearly, this would be a way better way to sort everything in this big old list than to make like 900 variables. So yeah, that would be good enough in the written response. So row 4, this is a show program segment with a procedure with a parameter, and then show where that procedure is called. So pres name, two parameters, and pres name is called right here. So there you go. That would be good enough for that point. Row 5, this one's a little bit tricky. Sequencing, selection, iteration. So my program has definitely, this is what it would be, pres name has some of those things. So for loops, which means iteration, if statements, especially this one, means selection. I don't think it has sequencing though, so I don't even think I earned this point, but we'll entertain this for anyways. So maybe I earned this point, maybe I didn't, probably not. So if we look next, it's just basically it's saying you just said you had selection in your program. Prove it. What are two different calls that get different outputs from this program? That's and it's not even just different outputs. It's different segments of the code happen. So if you look at this, mine, if you can see there's two different returns here. If it returns here, it's not going to play this code. So there you go. And also two different things returned. You can see true, false. So right there, two different things happen depending on what the input is. And so I think I would get that point. There's a few more iffy points in here, but for the most part, I definitely got 4 or 5 points. Don't think I got row 5 though. So that's a pretty solid code for the create task.